FBI Director Andy McCabe testifying today on the Hill. He will appear behind closed doors with the House Intelligence Committee. One of the top questions today, those anti-Trump texts between FBI agent Peter Strzok and FBI lawyer Lisa Page. He was removed from Mueller's team several months ago. South Carolina Congressman Trey Gowdy leads the questions. He's with me now, sir. Welcome back and good morning to you.
Yes, sir.
What do you want to understand from Andrew McCabe today?
Bill, Andrew McCabe cuts across every facet of every investigation in 2016 that your viewers are interested in, from Secretary Clinton's email to the investigation into the Trump campaign. He's the deputy director of the FBI. So there are a ton of questions, including the one you made reference to, the meeting between Agent Strzok and Lisa Page in, quote, Andy's office. We need to make sure that was Andy McCabe. And if they were coming up with a, quote, insurance policy in case Donald Trump won, that is devastating, and we're going to explore that at 2 o'clock today.
Okay, now, here is that text that you just mentioned on screen for viewers. I want to believe the path you threw out for consideration in Andy's office, that there's no way he gets elected, he meaning Trump. But I'm afraid we can't take that risk. It's like an insurance policy in the unlikely event you die before you're 40. How do you interpret that?
The same way most reasonable people do, which is we think Clinton's going to win, but we can't take a chance if she doesn't, and we need an insurance policy. And what I hope is that insurance policy was not a counterintelligence investigation into the Trump campaign. You can't read that text in isolation, though, Bill. This was a level of bias that you rarely see, frankly. When Strzok said the vote should be 100 million to 0, what he's saying is he can't think of a single one of his fellow citizens that would vote for Donald Trump. And then you add that, and Lisa Page said, well, you know, maybe you stuck around, maybe you're in this position to save the country. And his response was, I can save the country in a lot of different ways. Unprecedented bias. He's in the middle of major investigations. Thank God he's gone, but I want to know how the hell he got there in the first place.
Robert Mueller thinks, well, some believe Robert Mueller has been sloppy. Do you think that's true, or is that just coming from the White House and others on the right?
You know, I ran a district attorney's office. I am responsible for every hire that we made while I was there, although I didn't conduct every hire and interview while I was there. So the boss always is responsible. Do I think that Robert Mueller did the actual interviews and asked people, hey, do you have any bias? Have you donated to campaigns? No. In hindsight, should he or someone else have asked those questions? Absolutely. I am heartened by the fact that he kicked Strzok off as soon as he learned. I just wish he'd learned sooner.
One last topic here. This comes from Politico. Here's the headline for viewers as well. The secret backstory of how Obama let Hezbollah off the hook. It is a detailed, very involved story about how during the middle of the nuclear deal and nuclear talks with Iran, that Hezbollah was funneling money all over the world, including selling cars and selling cocaine and bringing it in the Middle East. Now, I don't know if you have seen this story.
Yes, sir.
It is very detailed. What do you make of it at first glance?
It's an incredible allegation that any administration would ignore one terrorist group because you were trying to curry favor with another terrorist group. It is incendiary. It is worthy of investigation across several different committees of Congress. Bill, I'd also note there was testimony a while back. It was kind of buried in a written opening statement where an official said as much, that they put the brakes on Hezbollah because they were so consumed with this legacy piece of a deal with Iran. So kudos to guys like Mike Pompeo and Tom Cotton, who had a lot of reasons for opposing the Iranian deal way back when. This just gives us one more. And if it's true, it's a pretty damning indictment of Obama's search for a legacy and his willingness to do anything to get one.
Last point on that. They suggest this is the real collusion. What do you think about that?
The real collusion is between...
Well, what the Obama team was doing when they were in power and all the players, be it Hezbollah, be it Iran, or possibly even Russia's ambitions in the Middle East.
We're gonna need to. I don't want to base it off of a political story. Congress has vast investigatory powers. We need to look into it. The allegation is incredibly serious that you would ignore a group that's killing American soldiers and wreaking havoc around the world just so you can cut a deal with a country that no one trusts. It's an incredibly serious allegation. I want to unlike some of my Democrat colleagues, Bill, I want to wait until after the investigation to draw conclusions instead of doing it on the front end.
Thank you, sir, for your time. 2 o'clock hearing
Yes, sir.
today behind closed doors. Trey Gowdy, the Republican from South Carolina. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Goodlatte. Director Ray, somewhere today, a group of our fellow citizens will be asked if they can be fair, impartial, free of bias before they sit in judgment of others on a jury. Even in the smallest of courtrooms where there are nothing but empty seats and no television cameras. Somewhere today, those selected to sit in judgment of their fellow citizens will be told that they must wait until the very last witness testifies and the last piece of evidence has been introduced before they can even begin to deliberate on an outcome. So if our fellow citizens should be impartial and free of bias, and if our fellow citizens must wait until the last piece of evidence is introduced, the last witness is called, before they can reach a verdict, a conclusion, an outcome, then I don't think it's asking too much that the Department of Justice and the FBI do the same thing. There is no member of Congress who holds the department and the Bureau in higher esteem than I do. There are others who hold you in high esteem, but I would take second place to no one. And I have defended the department and the Bureau when, frankly, it was pretty damn lonely to do so. When my Democrat friends were asking that Jim Comey be prosecuted for a Hatch Act violation about this time last year, they now want him canonized, but this time last year they wanted him prosecuted for a Hatch Act violation. When your predecessor sat right where you're sitting and was embroiled in a fight with this little tiny startup company called Apple, I was on the side of the Bureau. When there are calls for special counsel, even today, I reject them because I trust the women and men of the Department of Justice and the Bureau, the professionals that we hired to do their job. And the vast majority of line prosecutors and line agents are exactly what you described in your opening statement. They are exactly what you described. But unfortunately, the last 2 years have not been good years for the Bureau, and they have not been good years for the department. We had an attorney general meet with the spouse of a target of an investigation on the tarmac and asked that an investigation be called something other than an investigation, but be called a matter. We've had an attorney general recuse himself from the largest, most significant investigation currently in his office. We had the director of the FBI appropriate a major charging decision away from the Department of Justice because he was concerned that the public wouldn't have confidence if the Department of Justice handled that decision themselves. We had an FBI director write 2 politically volatile letters weeks before an election. We had an FBI director memorialize conversations he had with the President of the United States because he didn't trust the President's recall of those conversations. And I think what frustrates some folks is when Director Comey wanted special counsel for President Trump, he leaked one of those memos. When he didn't have confidence in Loretta Lynch, we didn't hear a word about it. There were no leaks that prompted special counsel when he didn't trust Loretta Lynch. There were leaks when he decided he didn't trust President Trump. We've had an acting AG fired. We've had the director of the FBI fired. And we can't manage to find prosecutors who haven't donated to presidential candidates. Out of all the universe of prosecutors that you used to work with, and I used to work with, and Johnny Ratcliffe used to work with, we can't find a dozen that haven't donated to major political candidates. And now we have Special Agent Strzok. It was the Inspector General, not the Department of Justice, not the Bureau who found these texts. It was the Inspector General. And I share your confidence in his objectivity. I share it. But it shouldn't have been the Inspector General that had to bring this to our attention 12 months after it happened. And that same agent is the one who reportedly interviewed Secretary Clinton in an interview that you and I have never seen conducted that way before. To have potential witnesses and potential targets sit in on a witness interview, I appreciate your professionalism and your unwillingness to want to say how unprecedented that is, so I'm not going to ask you. I'll just tell you, it's unprecedented. And that same agent is alleged to have been the one that changed the language. You're right, they are synonyms. Extremely careless is a synonym for grossly negligent, which begs the question, why change it? But you and I know why it was changed. It was changed because the statute says grossly negligent. And if you're not going to charge someone, God knows you don't want to track the statute with the language that you use. That would be stupid. Also stupid is to do that memo 2 months before you've interviewed the target. That memo was drafted before the last witness was interviewed. Director, it was drafted before the target of the investigation was even interviewed. Which makes people wonder, was the decision made before the interviews were finished? And now we believe that that same agent is also involved in the investigation into President Trump and his campaign, and may have interviewed Michael Flynn. That hasn't been confirmed, and we don't know what role, if any, he took in the preparation of documents for court filing. So I'm going to say this because I'm out of time, and I appreciate the chairman's patience with me. You have a really important job. When all else fails in this country, we want to be able to look to the FBI. We want to be able to look to the Department of Justice. When all the other institutions we trust, including Congress, appear to be broken, we want to be able to look to you. It's been a really bad 2 years. I am counting on you to help answer our questions in Congress, our fellow citizens' questions, but I am more than anything counting on you to go back to work for that blindfolded woman holding a set of scales that really doesn't give a whit about politics. That's the FBI that I want.